Alright, first things first, a couple of disclaimers to get out of the way before we start this video. Some of you may be wondering why I am in this video at all, or why it is being posted to OgichiGames. To put simply, I was requested by a third party to aid in the creation and upload of this video to clear up various lies and the sort surrounding an individual that goes by the name of Spooky. She has long since moved on from the walking dumpster fire known as the CC and would like to maintain some level of anonymity with the names of her new accounts and projects. That, of course, clears up why she herself is not posting the video, but that leaves the question as to why I am posting it instead. The main reason is that I was not actually the person who was supposed to be making any kind of videos in regards to this. However, the people in question that were supposed to address the situation are either too incompetent, too cowardly, or both to make their response statements in spite of the overwhelming evidence in favor of their side. That isn't Spooky saying that, by the way, that is me saying that. I, on the other hand, couldn't give two shits less about what this moronic lolcow of a community thinks, nor am I in any way intimidated by the walking vegetables they call fans, of whom I am sure will come flooding in to raid the comments with their childish crying, much to my amusement. With that disclaimer out of the way, let us begin. For this video, we will be paying particular attention to some things said in this video posted by the creator known as BoxovFox. A couple of things to note beforehand. Box likes to accuse people of, quote, dead naming whenever someone mentions one of her former internet aliases. This, of course, is not what dead naming actually means, though, and anyone with two brain cells to rub together would be able to figure that out. They're just usernames. Even in spite of that, however, it's entirely irrelevant. It's a non sequitur. This is merely a feeble-minded attempt from Box to distance herself from the terrible things that she has done and the dramas that she was involved with while using various other accounts and usernames. And yes, I will be using feminine pronouns throughout this video as it is the closest approximation to actually dead-naming Box as is possible, partially to prove the point of the irrelevancy of the dead name argument, but more so because it amuses me. Now, on to the video itself. And right from the title, you'll notice a big red flag, the phrase, my truth. Anytime you see this phrase, it means you are likely about to be told a lie. Truth is not a relative statement. Something is either true, or it is not. If you are planning on telling the truth, it would firstly not need to be stipulated, but even if it was, it should simply be the truth, assuming that it is in fact true. Truth is an absolute term. Whatever is true is true. Whatever isn't true is a falsehood. As such, since the phrase my truth is not the truth, it too is a falsehood. And that is exactly what you will find throughout Box's video. However, since her original video is over 3 hours in length, I will not be addressing everything in it, but rather only a handful of the lies to make a point. Lie number 1. Spooky and Creepswork are working with Saki. This argument is not only misleading, but irrelevant in more ways than one. Firstly, the evidence given to support this claim is shoddy at best. It relies on two main arguments. One, that Saki was using a public journal made by Spooky, and two, that Spooky was in a mutual public server with Saki, but while under the name of Maddie. The first is self-explanatory. Even though the journal had been taken down, it was publicly available for a long time, and multiple copies of it exist. This is not new information by any means, and any half-wit could have figured that out. The second claim is the only one that holds any water, as Spooky herself has admitted to knowing Maddie from that server in question. However, she denies ever knowing that Maddie was Saki, until very recently after Box's video. That said, though, notice that this is not only not evidence of the two collaborating, but there is literally zero evidence of Creepsworks' involvement in anything at all. The claim essentially can be boiled down to Creeps knows Spooky and Spooky knows Maddie, therefore everyone is conspiring against me. Yes, and I have space lasers. What are you, schizophrenic? Even if we were to assume this claim is accurate, it's entirely irrelevant anyway, because in case you haven't noticed by now, there is nothing wrong with people collaborating. This miserable excuse for a scapegoat that you are trying so desperately to create is based on nothing more than guilt by association for little more than more of your own lies. Which brings me to lie number 2. Saki doxed BoxovFox. To put simply, no. Saki made a post which contained Box's real name in it, and that's it. I hate to break it to you, but that isn't doxing, you Michelin man-looking troglodyte. Doxing is the malicious act of spreading a person's address. Names are usually attached but are largely unimportant, as that's not private information. The only reason Saki even had her name in the first place was due to Box having posted said information online multiple times in the first place. If you didn't want anyone using your name, then you yourself shouldn't have told everyone what it was. Speaking of which, I would just like to say how humorous I think it is that Box changed her real name to Sparrow, which just so happens to be the username of one of the most famous hentai fetish artists there is. Seriously, look it up. At the time of the writing of this script, Sparrow has 3,658 posts on R34 right now. This is why the CC is a lol cow. Perhaps next one of them might like to change their name to Mia Khalifa or Corey Chase. The final lie we will address is the claim that Spooky and Creeps went after Box's family. This is probably the most malicious lie that she has told, and will take the longest to explain. This claim is related to an incident regarding a man by the name of Mark Tufo. Not only is Box's claim not true, but the incident in question is something that Box did entirely to herself. A bit of context first, however. Creep's work at the time was doing a bit of writing, trying to make a story. I know very little about the story in question, but it's largely irrelevant to this particular incident.
Box approached Creep's work using an alternate account, and offered to help him with the writing in question.
For some reason, she attempted to add to her credibility by claiming to work for Mark Tufo. Creeps at the time accepted the help, but found her claim to be suspicious. As such, he did what any reasonable person might, and actually looked up and asked the reference in question if this person was in fact telling the truth.
Surprisingly, Creeps was successful in getting a hold of Mark online through his website's contact list, and inquired about this person claiming to work for him. Mark, of course, denied having this individual working for him, and Creep's work confronted Box, who, at this point, he still didn't know was BoxovFox, and told her she would be off the project.
She then laughs about how this was a big troll and how it was all to write a fanfic to ruin Creeps' character, etc., etc. And she was subsequently told to get a life. That, of course, was the end of Creeps' involvement in this story, but there was a small detail that Creeps was obviously unaware of. As it turns out, Box is related to Mark Tufo, and Mark was very upset that she was using his credibility behind his back. This led to a massive fallout with Box and her family, as you can imagine. A fallout that was entirely her own fault. Box, however, ever being the narcissist that she is, has for a number of years now refused to ever acknowledge this to herself, as getting Box to accept fault for anything is about as difficult as trying to piss through the eye of a needle from a mile away. But of course, any vegetable with half a functioning brain cell would be easily able to see how this was entirely her fault. I could go on for hours, but I think I've made enough of a point already. Box is a lying, manipulative, underhanded worm. She is a genuinely evil person who will say and do just about anything to squirm her way out of the consequences of her actions. From using and sullying the credibility of her own family behind their back, to making false claims about people, to even bordering on straight-up conspiracy theories, all in a vain attempt for a scapegoat. But make no mistake, this 3-hour-long video, the lies, the gaslighting, and dredging up of old dramas, it's all little more than a desperate attempt to obscure from the terrible things that she has done and is still currently doing. Now, if you excuse me, I've much more important things to be working on. So, as the critical drinker might say, go away now.